Hi, this is Bill. I'm going to give you my take on Trump's tariffs. Is the economy going to go up, down, sideways, or whatever? Anyway, this is my only Pepper knows for sure. Anyway, here you go. Go have fun. Okay, let's say you invest some money in some asset, and 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 then you go ahead and sell it or value it at some later time. So you buy the you get the asset at some time before, and that's B. And then you have the value of the asset sometime in the future, which is A. Do this math, multiply by 100, you get the percent change. So, people understand this formula, but that's how you do the calculation. Well, here's the tariff formula. So you got percent tariff equals 100 times. Here you got imports minus exports divided by exports times these fudge factors. I know the epsilon is elasticity. I forget what phi is, but for every country, the product of these two numbers is 1. So you just put that in, and so you get this formula. Notice it's identical to the asset change value formula. So I want to thank Steve from Aptera's Owners Club for pointing this out, because he had a thing on tariffs, and he was kind of making the point that most of the national tariffs of countries, what the government is actually taxing is, it's generally less than 10% in most cases. So so anyway, that's how Trump calculated what he called his reciprocal tariff per country. So, but Trump is a nice guy, so he's only going to charge them half of this. Okay, so what are the goals? As best as I can see it, is that I think he wants to eliminate the $1 trillion trade imbalance. Two, he wants to diversify the U.S. economy so we can do more things. Three is lower interest rates and refinance the U.S. debt. He wants to get that cheaper. May 4, I'm not sure, but I've heard this said, and it could be part of the plan too, is to devalue the dollar, but still have it remain as a global reserve currency. So yeah, this will of course help to make our economy more competitive too. Okay, as far as eliminating the $1 trillion trade imbalance, that seems like a really good thing to do, in my opinion, because I wonder where all this money comes from. Basically, you've got $1 trillion a year leaving town and making other countries richer. I mean, where does this come from? I mean, I guess we must be borrowing it some way. So I gotta say that that's a good thing to do, regardless of anything else. Diversifying the U.S. economy, is also a good thing to do. My thoughts on this is like this. One of the areas that we've kind of lost a lot of traction is in manufacturing, and I've heard a lot of people say, well, so what? We can make money other ways like software development and technology and stuff. But the problem I do see with this is that argument is that if we're not competitive in manufacturing, it's probably only be a matter of time we won't be competitive, say, in software and other things too. I mean, these other countries that are beating us in manufacturing, of course, are going to go into those other fields too, because there may be even more value to be gained. Lowering the interest rate and refinancing the U.S. debt seems like a good thing to do too. I mean, we spend so much money on interest on the debt as it is, so we can get that reduced. It has to be a good thing. So, yeah. And then the fourth one, this is kind of speculative, but I think obviously we want to remain as the global reserve currency. I think the health of our country depends on that. As far as devaluing the dollar, I don't know. I have nothing to say about that. So before we go on, I guess I'll admit I'm a little bit obsessed with my fitness, as I've explained in videos before. So today I was quite happy. I was able to do a ring muscle up. I'm like practically 60, going to be 68 in a few days now. So I want to be strong and hard to kill and look good naked in my body. So okay, regarding this whole tariff thing, I I don't really have. I mean, there's so many angles and ways to argue this, and I'd be yeah. I don't know. All I gotta say is that I hope this works, because I do think the goals and objectives are very honorable and good. You know, whether this is the way to achieve those things, I guess time will tell. Um, yeah, so I know a lot of people that are against the tariffs, of course, bring up the Great Depression and the Smoot-Hawley tariff. But I do think there are a number of differences back then, and also I don't think the Smoot-Hawley tariff caused the Depression, as some have said. The issue here is that I think the Great Depression was caused by, again, excess amount of debt, which we probably have now. And back then, one thing that was happening was that throughout the 20s, a lot of industry was being created on basic financing and borrowed money. And one real big red flag that started in early 1929s, before the stock market crash and all that, was that industrial capacity was now in excess of what it was needed. In other words, industrial capacity or output actually had decreased quite a bit. And the problem is, of course, these factories are all leveraged on borrowed money, so now they don't have as many sales or customers for their stuff. So it, of course, it's going to make it possibly impossible for them to pay their debt. So that was a problem. Then, of course, the stock market crashed, and of course, a ton of that was being leveraged as well at the time. You know, so a lot of liquidity of money disappeared. And then on the liquidity front, we were on a gold standard back then. And these will probably be fighting words for people, but I think maybe because of that, our ability to the liquidity of the economy was just really bad, because I don't think you could borrow and print money like we do today so easily. So, but I don't know how that played a role, because yeah, a number of mistakes were made, because I think the Federal Reserve at that time it raised interest rates, which was the last thing you needed to do. So yeah, there were a lot of screw-ups. And then along comes the Smoot-Hawley tariff. That was a year later. But one big difference was that back then, the United States was a net exporter of stuff. We were making money from other countries. And so putting this tariff in caused a trade war where reciprocal tariffs were sent back at us, and that was not a good thing to do, because at a time when our factories and industry needed customers, we basically took them away with that move. Now, how big an impact that had, I don't know, but you know, I will say this: the whole world economy was going into a recession, or in our case, a depression, and I'm pretty sure that tariff or no tariff, you know, sales abroad were going to go down just like they did in the United States. So, yeah, that was that. Now, the situation today, of course, is we pretty much have instant liquidity, because the government could just borrow and print money, or you know, at wills. You know, so you're probably not going to get a complete collapse of money supply like happened in the 1929. And the big thing, of course, is this $1 trillion a year trade deficit. I looked this up on Google. That's what they say it is. As I show some charts here of this. So again, as I asked before, maybe economists can explain this to me that might listen to my stuff, is where does that money come from? So, I mean, it's obviously leaving the country. So yeah, And then one thing I do think is common with 1929 is that we're in a ton of debt. I mean, right now, we are basically borrowing our way to buy all this stuff. I mean, credit card debt supposedly has gone up to like record levels. So what? So maybe the most interesting part of this video is this. What have I done about this? Well, I okay. This is not financial advice. This is not a financial recommendation. And this is probably really bad financial advice if you talk to anyone in this work. But I kind of been timing the stock market trading based on that. My first timing effort was late in 2021, where I pulled all my money, retirement money, out of equities and put it as like a guaranteed income thing. And I remember the person I talked to, who was holding the money, was recommending strongly against that. Says it's not going to keep up with inflation. And I said to her, I'm not worried about keeping up with inflation. I'm worried about losing a ton of money when the stock market dumps. Yeah, and the reason why I felt it was going to dump was because it was going to be high inflation, high interest rates. Stock market hates that. And so I pulled out. And then in 2023, early 2023, I went back in again with a more diversified position. And so while everyone at work was complaining about how they'd lost 20% of their retirement savings, I said to them, I actually gained 3% because of that move. I saved $200,000 I basically, by doing that, I didn't lose $200,000. So anyway, I kind of thought, well, I'm not really a professional at this, so maybe I should have this handled by a professional guy. So I've kind of moved my money into different places, and it's being handled by professional people who know what they're doing. So, but the next move I did happened shortly after Trump was elected. I took my daughter's college fund, which was 100% equities. The Dow Jones was like over 46,000, and the S&P was like about 6. Pulled it all out of equities and put it into a guaranteed income. Because again, I know the stocks are way overvalued. I think we've been in a silent recession for maybe a couple years. And I say silent because no one's acknowledging it's a recession, but if you look at way people on the street are reacting, everyone's complaining about how they can't make ends meet anymore. A lot of people are doing this doomsday spending, just putting stuff on the credit card. I mean, basic essentials like food and things like that, which of course running up that debt. So I thought, yeah, stocks are going to come down, and they did start trickling down. Maybe the Dow dropped to about 4,200, and then the S&P 500, I think it was about 5,500. So anyway, but my plan was I'm not going in until we get a 20% drop. And so on Friday we got the 20% drop. So I went ahead and moved back. I decided I only do 50% because I'm not sure where this is all going to end. 50% back into equities with her account. So, and I know people say, shouldn't time stock market. Well, here's what I gotta say. You don't necessarily have to get it at the top or at the bottom, but just make sure that when you get out, it's higher than when you go back in. Because if you do that, you're going to be ahead. And so that's kind of my philosophy. But I'm going to, I put 50% in. So one thing that totally sucks though is that the TIAA, where I got this money, I can only do 2 trades a year, and I've burned one of them already. So I've got to be very deliberate with this. But anyway, again, not investment advice. I'm just telling you what I did. I'm kind of happy about it because it looks like it's worked out. Now, here's the thing. Stock market could go down another 20%. I mean, yeah. So, but here's how I look at it. As long as I got in lower than when I came out, I've got that head start when it does come back. Versus people are just riding this out. So it's like I'm already 20% head start on anyone who's riding it out. And of course, obviously, I guess I am betting that the stock market is not just going to go down to zero or just be permanently depressed forever. So as long as I say you get out higher than you go in, and the stocks do eventually recover and go to new highs, this strategy seemed to work for me. Anyway, if you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. It helps me with my low self-esteem. So until next time, bye bye.